Hello and welcome back. Today we're talking about the truth about the buy, refurbish, rent, refinance strategy and why it's not as good as some investors are led to believe. And I'm going to propose a slightly different strategy, a more profitable strategy, an easier strategy that you can earn money from, and it's a great way to scale a property portfolio. Now make sure you stay tuned to the very end of this video, because not only am I dispelling the truth about the BRRR strategy, but also I'm going to give you an alternate idea on what to do next if you're not undergoing the buy, refurbish, rent, refinance strategy. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Marco. I'm a portfolio landlord, property investor, developer, and mentor. And I'm extremely passionate about helping people invest in property. Now, first of all, I must apologize for the rather clickbaity title of this video. I don't know what the title is going to be yet, however, I've got a few ideas in my head. Nevertheless, please do not be put off by the title of this video, because I'm going to tell you my opinion on the BRRR strategy. Yes, it's a great strategy, but I'm going to give you an even better idea, and maybe as a result of watching this video all the way to the end, you'll be able to work easier and work smarter and not have to undergo a full refurbishment. So first of all, let's just define BRRR for those of you that are unfamiliar on what this means. So very quickly, B stands for buy. It's where we're buying a property, nice and easy. R stands for refurbishment. This is where we refurb the property to add value to it. The second R stands for rent. So once the property has been refurbished, we can rent it out to a tenant. The third R stands for refinance. This is the most important part in the BRRR strategy. This is where we refinance the property after the refurbishment at a new higher value. And this refurbishment allows us to go again and repeat the process. So the fourth R stands for repeat, because this is how it works. After the refinance, we take our new mortgage up here, we pay back our old mortgage down here, and whatever we're left with is called a cash surplus. And this cash surplus we have in our bank ready to invest, and that cash surplus is often enough to buy a very next property with a 25% deposit if you're buying with mortgages. And this is the beauty of the BRRR strategy, because it allows you to recycle your cash fast and grow your property portfolio and buy that very next deal. However, do we actually need to undergo the full part of this strategy? And I'd argue no. Now here are a few disadvantages before we come on to why and what to do next. Well, if you haven't already watched my pros and cons video of the BRRR strategy, I thoroughly recommend that you watch it. Here's a picture of the thumbnail. I'll link to it also in the description. But there are several cons to this strategy. The first is that things change. Your interest rate could change in the long term. Very briefly, one huge con is that we don't know where property prices are going to be in the future, because obviously think about this. There's a certain time span between, looking for properties and having your property offer accepted all the way through to completion, and then to refurb, rent it out and refinance. And this time span can often be at least 1 year. And who knows where we're going to be 1 year on from now. Property prices could fall, in which case when we're getting the bank or the mortgage lender to refinance the property, they may not want to value it up here as we had originally forecast 12 months prior. Maybe they want to just ever so slightly decrease that valuation. Also, interest rates can change, and if we just take the past 12 months alone, depending on when you're watching this video, interest rates have moved remarkably. Now again, if you're forecasting for a specific interest rate 12 months on, but actually the interest rate, the true interest rate is much higher, well, all of a sudden when you come to refinance that property, you're going to be paying that lender more to service the loan. Again, this reduces your cash flow and profitability. So Marco, you've just described a few cons of the BRRR strategy and told me that we shouldn't actually undergo the full part of this strategy. Well, what should we do? Well, here's my opinion. A lot of people that rush and get into property, they see homes under the hammer and they think that they need to do a full refurb or to refurb a property to add value or to profit in the property industry. Now, this is not correct. Refurb does not equal profit. In fact, most of the times people either overspend on their refurbs, they're refurbing a property for too long, or actually the figures and the forecasts that they put together prior to refurbing the property are completely inaccurate. And people often pay too much for property as well. So if you're paying too much for property and you're spending money on a refurb, you're probably not going to make any profit or have any equity in the property after the refurb. So here is what I suggest. Let's work smarter, not harder. Let's take an easier life, not a harder life. And what is the answer? Well, if we can just tick off one of the R's in this process, let's try and remove the refurbish element of the BRRR strategy. So if we take this out of the equation, this is what we're left with. Number 1, buy. Number 2, rent. Number 3, refinance. It's as simple as that. So we've left out the refurbish part of the property. Well, Marco, does that work? Because I thought we had to refurb a property to add value. Yes, sometimes refurbing a property can add value, and yes, I do it myself occasionally, but it's not my preference. I'd rather buy a property at a really good price point, rent it out, and then refinance having done nothing to the property. Do you want an easy life or do you want a hard life? And this all comes down to, and how we can actually do this strategy and undergo this strategy and make sure it's a profitable one, all comes down to the price we're buying the property for. So if we're paying market value for a property, then renting it out, we can't really refinance it because there's no equity in there to withdraw. So what this means is we need to be getting a really good below market value offer accepted on a property, because then we don't even need to do a lick of paint, put in a new kitchen, put in a new bathroom. We can simply refinance at the market value of the property. So to recap, by buying below market value, we can then refinance later down the line without doing any refurb whatsoever and profit from this activity. And let's go over an example here together. So let's say there's a property and the market value of this property is £120,000 and it doesn't need any work doing to it. It doesn't need a refurb. Well, if we can get this property for £100,000, buy the property, rent it out if it's not already rented out, and then refinance this property later down the line, well, what we can do is we've got our original mortgage. Let's just say we've purchased it with a 75% loan to value, which is a standard buy-to-let loan to value. So we purchased it for £100,000. 75% of the £100,000 is a mortgage of £75,000. But this property is worth £120,000. Now, here's the thing. We've got two options now. We can either refinance in a timely manner, in around 6 months, and maybe pay those early repayment charges, or maybe we can wait 2 years. Maybe we can fix our mortgage for 2 years and then refinance then, and we don't have to pay any fees. Well, obviously, if we're refinancing after 6 months, there's not really going to be any huge change in the value of the property. But if we're waiting 2 years or maybe even 5, there can be a considerable change in the value, either up or down. Now, in the long run, in the UK, property prices increase. That's something really important to note. But let's just say, going back to the example, this property is worth £120,000, but we've bought it at £100,000. We've got a really good below market value offer accepted. So let's say we wait 2 years to refinance, and let's say the value has increased ever so slightly. Let's say it's gone to £130,000. So we bought it at £100,000. It's now worth £130,000. So we've got that £30,000 equity still in the property. Now again, if we're maintaining the same loan to value, that same 75% loan to value, we can withdraw 75% of £30,000 from the property. So 75% of £30,000 is £22,500. So we haven't even painted the property, we've done absolutely nothing to the property, but when we're refinancing at that new high valuation, £130,000, we have £22,500 cash surplus in our account ready to invest again, which is absolutely phenomenal. And again, depending on where you're buying a property, especially in the north of the UK, and putting down a 25% deposit, well, that's the majority of your deposit for that very next purchase. So there's my alternate idea. Buy at below market value. Don't rely on the refurbishment to increase the value. And again, do you want to refurb a property? It's hard work, it's hassle. Buying at the right price, buying at a good discount is one way to really lock in those profits, lock in that equity, and make the journey a little bit easier. So if you're struggling to buy below market value and you want someone in your corner to help you, especially with the negotiation part of the property purchasing process, go to my website, www.ms7.uk, click on the mentoring page and book a call with me. I'm extremely passionate about helping people invest in property correctly and securing and negotiating great discounts. So again, if that's something you're interested in, please do head to my website. So I hope you got value from this video, and it's proposed a slightly different idea to refurbing a property. You don't have to refurb a property to make money. By buying at the right price, you have significant equity in a property from day one, and you're not even touching a hammer and you're not touching a paintbrush. With that being said, all the very best within your property investing day. Goodbye.